On us. All right, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for another webinar. It's our second last one of the year, which is very exciting. We do have a co-host that is going to join us this morning, and I'll do a little bit of an intro for him before he joins us, and hopefully his Zoom is not going to take that much longer to update. Shame, he's stressing a little bit on WhatsApp, saying, of course, Murphy's Law, that Zoom is going to update as soon as he has to jump onto it, but in any event, that's 100% fine. Carl, if I can hand over to you to do our admin announcements, any upcoming events that we've got going on, and then I'll do an intro to Darion that when he does arrive, he can jump on and start with the presentation.
Okay, perfect. Thanks, Linda. Good morning, everyone. I hope you're all doing well, and thank you so much for tuning in this morning. I can't believe it's November and it's our second last webinar of the year. It's absolutely crazy. Then, as Linda mentioned, this webinar will be recorded and published on our YouTube channel, so as well as our website. So please do keep your eyes open for that. And please also remember to like and subscribe. It definitely helps us. And then if you haven't already, please do subscribe to or sign up to our newsletter. This way you can keep in touch with the TVDM consultants team. And then lastly, our TVDM Table Talks live discussion will be happening next week, Friday at 9 a.m. This is a segment where once a month you'll have the opportunity to ask our consultants any questions you may have live. And this feature is only available to paid for members on our neighborhood. And then I'll share all the links in the chat. Thanks very much.
Fantastic. All right. So just an intro to our speaker in his absence. On a personal note, Darion and I went to primary school together in Cape Town. For those of you that know me, you'll know that I moved up and down between Cape Town and Port Elizabeth throughout my education. And one of the schools that I attended in Cape Town, Darion was a classmate as young as in grade 2. And after grade 4, I didn't see him again for years and years and years until he actually attended one of our webinars when we first started TVDM as a trustee. And it was so strange that I actually recognized him. And when I saw his name on Zoom, I recognized his name. So my memory is not as bad as I think it is. And I immediately messaged him to say, is this Darion from Panorama Primary? And he said, oh my God, Celinda, I can't believe that you remember me. We immediately started chatting about where he is in life, including his responsibilities as an owner and a trustee in a sectional title scheme. Again, Murphy's Law, just down the road from my house, how strange the world is, and how he got into sectional title, how he became a trustee, how he became interested in property. Darion is a principal, estate agent, as well as a couple of other very interesting things that he does. He does have a bio that he sent through. He is a highly experienced senior financial services professional with more than 18 years leadership experience in BPO, private and public sector. Seeking new adventures, he entered into the real estate sector in 2018, and after learning the trade successfully, he passed the PDE4 examination and became a full status agent. In 2021, Darion became a principal agent and founded HOD Property, which is House of Darion Property. Darion has a passion for adding value through education, in which he coined the term valucation. I thought that was pretty cute. HOD Property offers letting services, residential sales, and more recently will be venturing into estate planning. Darion holds a BA degree with an MBA and MPRE qualifications. So that's an introduction to my colleague. When he does join us, I'm going to start on his behalf at the moment. And we've also got a new colleague of mine online, Francois Willemse. I'm going to share his details on the chat. He's actually the attorney that is kindly assisting me with dealing with my dad's estate. So it's an experience that I've unfortunately recently had to embark on myself. And I never ever imagined that it was going to be as complicated as what it is. So for those of you that are going through it, and God forbid those of you that will have to go through it one day, I do hope that you will find value in the presentation that we're going to offer today. Of course, we do try to ensure that all of our presentations are linked to community schemes and to property specifically. And in regard to today's presentation, I would like to add a little bit of my own personal experience, considering that the estate is dealing with a couple of sectional title schemes as well. For those of you that have been working with us for a while, you also know that we have sectional title and HAAs in our blood personally, owning and living in community schemes. And the estate that Francois is assisting me with also has to deal with bodies corporates as well, and formalities that have to be complied with before we're able to attend to wrapping up the estate, as well as selling and transferring properties in the sectional title schemes. So quite an interesting line of work, most certainly. Darion himself personally is also going through the process of wrapping up a personal estate. So he's got some information to share with you on a personal level as well. Darion, I do think that you've joined. If you can just pop your camera on and unmute yourself, and then we can get going on your presentation. And Carl, if you could perhaps just share the presentation on your side as well, please. I'm going to allow you to do so. There we go. Hi, Darion. How are you?
Hi, fine. Oh my word. Technical disasters, really?
No problem. No problem at all. I did do an introduction.
I'm good.
I did do an introduction to you already from a personal level and a professional level, and I did explain that you and I both have some experience in dealing with the estate when it comes to property. I've asked Kyle to share the presentation in the background, so perhaps you could just introduce yourself and anything that you'd like to add, and then you can get going.
All right, stunning. Thank you so much. Oh my goodness. I'm really glad to be here, and for everybody that has joined, thank you so much. I'm Darion. I've been in the property sector since about 2018. I work for HOD Property and I'm the principal. I think today it might be a bit of a strange topic, certainly from my side, but I wanted it to be personal. There's two things that I really wanted to get out of today. One, if you didn't know it and you walked away with some new information, then hooray. But two, that I think we should start talking about death a little bit more during life. And I know this might sound a little bit melancholic, but it's something that I never thought I would ever be ready for. I wasn't. And when it happened, I needed to kickstart into processes which were above my head. So I think the theme is, I think we should talk about death while we are alive. So on that depressing note, I think I'd like to proceed just to say this is going to be, also, Zelinda, this is at the end of my comfort zone. So I think after something like this happens, and for anybody who knows what it's like to deal with a family member where, the end is nigh, it's something shifts within you. So I'm in the position now of going, oh my word, my nerves were shattered. And I'm like, no, but this is exactly what I need to do if that's happening. I need to talk about this. I want to share what my experience was. And so if any of us are on the call and, you haven't paid attention to death, or it's like with our family, we never wanted to talk about it. It was always going to be somewhere in the future. That's the shocking part. I saw my mom in April of this year, and in August she left us, and it was insane. I mean, this is someone who was my best friend and confidant. So in our minds, we never needed to talk about this because mom was going to live until 80. And I think the reason why I'm really grateful is she was someone who was very prepared. But I think the purpose behind this meeting is to go, guys, let's talk about death while we are alive. And let's just be prepared to know high-level things of what's required. So that's the real purpose behind me sharing this personal experience. So hopefully it'll be a little bit easier for you to navigate when the day comes for you to do this. So yeah, let's crack on to the...
Fantastic. So just to interrupt you for a second, obviously we are speaking to managing agents, we're speaking to estate agents, we're speaking to owners and trustees. And the nice thing about this topic is that both of us are going through it personally, but we have the legal background as well as the property background. And I think a lot of people that are on the call might not necessarily be going through it in their personal capacities, but as estate agents or managing agents or trustees, they would like to know how does an estate late affect, outstanding levies? How does it affect handing out the levy clearance certificate? You would have missed it in the beginning, but we've also got Francois Willemse online, and he's actually the attorney that's assisting me with my dad's estate late. And I said to him, although we won't put him on the spot with asking him his view on things. If there is anything from a legal perspective that he would like to chip in with, I did tell him he's more than welcome to do so. I also expressed
Yes.
I was definitely the person, like you said, I stuck my head in the sand and I said, don't worry, Dad, I'll sort it out. I'll sort it out. I'll sort it out. I'm an attorney. I can do it. Like, there's no problem. I've got experience in property law, blah, blah, blah. But when it actually happened, it was like learning to write. It's such a insane process that you're dealing with on the first time. And the amount of documentation that you need is crazy. And of course, you're dealing with homes and their investments. I recently got a trustee ask me a question as to whether or not a family member of a deceased owner would be allowed to attend a meeting. And I said, yes, if there's a proxy, and the proxy has been completed by the master appointed executor. And having known that the process does take a while to get that letter, it is interesting that you basically you don't exist until you get that letter of executorship, and you can't move forward until you get that letter of executorship. So that's very important for our managing agents and estate agent colleagues to know. Sorry for interrupting you, Darion. Back to you.
No, not at all. And I love it, because from a personal perspective, this may be something you deal with, but from a property perspective, so this is just my style. I seem to have been dealing with a lot more late estates or estate lates this year. And in this session, I want to share a methodology that I find exceptionally helpful to deal with people who are who have gone through this type of experience, because there's a lot of things that also come out of the woodwork when you are an agent and you're here, you're signing a mandate, you chatted to the executor and you want to, sell the property. But there are a lot more emotional nuances, which I think one has to be aware of. So estate late does not happen quickly. And I mean, as people would know if they've sold this. So yeah, there's an emotional tool that I'm going to use. It's something I've used professionally, but I'm going to introduce it as well. So yeah, let's crack on to the topics. Thank you, Kyle. These are the things that I wish to share. I hope it's really valuable for whoever is watching. Right. So when should you, when should you inform the master's office of when a estate is late or when somebody has passed? What are the forms generally that you will be required? What is the letter of executorship or letter of authority, and who can be one? How to navigate conflict. This is something I'm quite passionate about. And then how to lodge at the master's office. So these are what I would like to cover. And then so Francois, from a detail perspective, I'm absolutely grateful you are here, because I'm doing high level. So the expertise, if at any point you wish to jump in, thank you so much for that. So I think we can move on to the next one. So, okay, so this is the did you know, but I didn't know that the estate of a deceased person must be reported to the master's office within 14 days. I don't think people realize this, but this is information that I came across and I thought I need to share this, because even if it's not going to be happening in your reality right now, it's vital that if you are dealing with someone who's going through this at the back end as an agent, someone who's going to be assisting them with the estate, this is important information, because for the first 10 days after your client receives the news, they are in shock. And so they're literally just capable of putting one foot in front of the other. So as an agent, as a professional, we are not just professionals. We are also a counselor, a psychologist, a therapist, which you would know throughout this. And you really have to juggle many different hats. The death is also to be reported by any person having control or possession of any property or documents that intends to be a will of the deceased. So, for example, in our case, we had a will that was in a confidential suitcase, but my mum had subsequently taken out a different will with the bank. So these are really important questions to know, because it would state in the will who the executor is, for example, and if it's generally taken up with the bank essentially becomes the executor, right? And that's a different conversation, I think, to have, which is a different webinar, whether or not the bank should be.
That is definitely a completely different webinar, and I think we'll get Francois to co-host that, because I've got experience.
Yes. Yes, that's a different animal altogether. And then the estate is reported by lodging a completed death notice and other reporting documents with the master's office. So it might also be, when you are dealing with the master's office, it can be kind of technical when they're asking you for a J90 this and a something form. So what's essential to know is when this does happen, a death notice needs to be issued, which is a J294. And your agent, when assisting you through this, when lodging at the master's office, would be obviously requesting this information from you. Then an inventory form known as a J243. This is where you highlight what was movable, or when the person had passed, what was movable, what was immovable, for example, and what was cash, what was actually in the bank account. So you're listing everything that the person had to your knowledge. Things like, did they have shares? Did they have policies? Were the policies to the estate versus paying into directly to beneficiaries? These will be questions that would like to be asked of a family once you're sitting in the lounge, taking a mandate, ready to sell the property. There may be things that come up that is, I think, quite helpful to know. And then a marriage declaration, like the Commissioner of Oaths. One of the things that Home Affairs told me, just FYI again, is try to always have an electronic version of a marriage certificate, because once it's registered at Home Affairs and the death certificate is issued, it's almost very difficult to then subsequently get the marriage certificate. So that's also something I thought I have to put this in here because I didn't know that. I think we can move on to the next slide, please, Kyle. Thank you. So important thing to note, when an estate is of the value of 250,000, I slotted this in and I just realized I didn't say it. So when an estate is worth a value of 250,000 and less, a letter of authority can be obtained in order for the estate to then run its course, which you can do directly at the master's office. However, estates above 250,000, then it's advisable to get an attorney to assist you, because anything above 250 will then need a letter of executorship to be issued through to you. Again, the master's office is, I don't want to say not your friend, but they're not going to expedite on these situations. So it can take a while for the letter of executorship to be issued. And then, as Linda alluded to earlier, you literally are in sort of the wilderness before you can actually take hold of what's happened with someone that was very close to you or someone you're assisting to move the process forward. What are the things that you need to have? Interestingly enough, if you are dealing with foreign clients, so my mom lived in Germany and she passed away in Germany, and so we were issued with an international death certificate, right? And we thought that this would be the only thing that was required. And to our surprise, nobody in South Africa really wanted to deal with that certificate. So I needed to go to Home Affairs and then get the South African one. So one, it's advisable if you have international clients that you are in, you do obtain the international death certificate, but also it needs to be lodged in South Africa. It just allows you to move a lot faster. ID documents of absolutely everyone is the simplest form. The deceased, the spouse, kids, always have them and try to get them certified. This is why it's so helpful to do all these things and have a conversation of death while we are alive, like creating a dossier somewhere where you're not necessarily going to look at it every day, but a place where absolutely everything is central. So yeah, that you may need to access that. Marriage certificates, helpful to obtain an electronic copy, as I mentioned, any antenuptial contracts, surviving spouses' ID details, last will, any policies, and the list of creditors is also vital information. The reason why I'm tackling it from this perspective is these are conversations that I'm having with people who have gone through an experience. They don't know what to do, but they know the house needs to be sold somewhere along the line. So when we are in the lounge, like we are when we are signing a sole and exclusive mandate, we are taking the person through why. Okay, so firstly, what is the comparative market analysis? What is this actually worth? Because you're navigating so much more than just the sale in this specific example. There are high emotions. There are generally things that any tension that has happened in the family, it is going to happen now in front of you. So the reason why it's important to me to share this is when you've got this information, it supercharges your ability to sign a mandate and literally take these people and your client along the journey to then sell and then for it to, go along the natural course of the estate. Kyle, I think we can move on to the next slide, please. So who can become an executor? It can be anyone, actually, which I've come to learn. It's generally the bank, if you've signed a will with the bank. It can be an agency like Capital Legacy or different organizations which do assist you with the process. I know, Zelinda, you've flagged somebody that does really good assisting with wills, and they also assist clients.
Yes, Nexus Fiduciary. I'll send their details.
Yeah.
the group as well. Also a colleague of ours that actually introduced me to
Excellent.
Francois. So a really great connection to have. I'll share the details on the chat.
Fab. So yeah, so companies like that are literally a right hand for somebody who is a little bit emotional and needs to be walked through the process. So that's brilliant. And then, or you can actually assign the eldest child, or somebody can assign anybody that they find is responsible to be the executor. You do have to accept it. And generally speaking, this is where I'm not going to go too much into the detail. There is an executive fee, which is generally about 3.5% of the entire estate. So the agent, the attorney that's helping generally through this, who will get the letter of executorship, who open up the estate account, for example, they would, once they've wrapped up everything in the estate, they would then be able to take their fee, and then it will likely be paid out after that. There can be more than one executor. You can actually have two. I think you can have three, depending on what the roles and responsibilities are. This is why, if anything comes out of this conversation, please encourage your people to have a will. Encourage your clients to have a will, just so that everything in their intention in this point in time is very clearly sort of spelt out. Because when somebody passes, those conversations of, oh, I remember having this conversation and they always said that I'd be able to do this, that goes out of the window. But because it's so emotionally charged, you as the property professional are going to be stuck there literally among that. So it's important for you to go right. For all clients, encourage them to have a will to specify what they wish. And for us as humans, having a human experience sitting on this call, it's important for you to have a will. No matter what you think you don't or do own, have something, a document that specifies what you would like to have happen if tomorrow you close your eyes. And I think the other important thing to say of that is a will can be updated. Just make sure that whoever benefits from a will cannot sign as a witness. That's important. One of the questions that are coming through is what happens. I'm seeing them and then I'm moving as well. Like one of the things that was crazy for us is once you have to inform the bank that the person has passed away, those accounts are frozen. Now, this is where it becomes really technical for the siblings or the spouse who's left behind with access to absolutely no liquid cash, and they are still accountable to paying levies. This is where it becomes really technical, because what tends to happen if, for example, in August, the person passes away, literally a week later, the bank is informed, they freeze. But as you know, levies need to continue. So now the person gets into arrears. You would hope that once the estate is wrapped up, they would then pay into the levy account, clear up the levy account, and then be able to get a levy clearance certificate before the property can even move. So it gets very technical. I don't want to go too much into the bank account side of it. I just know that it's essential. I think in hindsight, Zelinda, I would put everything into an inheritance account, give that account and PIN number to my siblings, and go, if ever this happens, access my bank account and you do you. This is something I would never have known, but I would go there now if it was 100%. Me personally.
Because you can't even have insurance or anything like that in place. I'm sorry that Mike Addison's not on the call. He's our insurance guru. But you can't even have insurance that you're going to be guaranteed to pay out to deal with all of this. Something that I wanted to say earlier was when I was a managing agent, we would normally be the last to be notified that the property, the owner of the property had passed away, and that it was actually an estate late. So we would be, following up, when are we going to get payment, raising interest, handing the account over, and all that fun stuff. And then we'd be advised that it is an estate late. And what we would do is, it depends on what system your managing agent is working with, but we would immediately change the account to an estate late. And that when we were dealing with any debtors, we wouldn't go and, pursue that debtor. We wouldn't go and send reminders and raise interest and all those fun things, because we knew that in essence, that is a frozen account until such time as the estate is dealt with. That being said, as a levy collection attorney, in my experience at that time, so many of these estates take years to get wrapped up, and there might be disputes that delay things,
Yeah.
that sometimes the body corporate is quite prejudiced by not having dealt with this issue. And maybe Francois can comment on it, but I know a levy collection attorney colleague of mine would be able to as well. You know, what does the body corporate do? Is there something that they can do to chase up or to get information on the estate late? Because sometimes a body corporate can't sit back and wait for the estate to be wrapped up until they pursue their levies. What my mom did, and I know that Francois will tell her and probably has told her, like, you shouldn't have done that, but she paid her levies, her rates, her DSTV, her everything, even the post office, the post box, up for like 6 or 7 months, the period that she assumed it would take to deal with the estate. I actually got a copy of the levy statement during the course of this week, and I said to her, oh, Mom, you know, those 6 months that you paid is coming to an end quite quickly. We're going to have to think about what we're going to do to pay accounts moving forward. And one of the things that Francois told us was, you know, Zelda and Zelinda, from this date, you're not paying anything. You can't pay anything out of the estate until we, you know, start the process and deal with it. So everyone just kind of has to wait. Luckily, we were left with a situation of where everything was paid up and there wasn't bonds and all of that fun stuff to deal with. But your normal expenses of levies and rates and, you know, accounts and all that fun stuff, that, you know, you still have to deal with it. So it's a lot.
Exactly. Yeah, indeed. And then you're still coming and you're wanting to then go, right, but this is my commission. So you, as an agent, you're coming in at the tail end of all of that. This is the journey that you now walk as an individual going, I need to sell this property because now the attorney's telling us we need to sell this property, or it was co-owned. How does it transfer? You've got to pay for transfer fees. There's a whole lot of technicalities that do happen here. So yeah, thank you, Kyle. I think we can move on to the next slide. I don't know if Francois wants to comment on anything that you've just said now, Zelinda, because that's a different ballgame altogether. And I think that's a topic I'd really want to get into, because I think just from an agency, as an agent, this is the stuff where we come to sitting in the lounge and handling conflict among siblings. I want to say something which might be a little bit left side, but when I've dealt in this year with estate lates, I've never generally found any concerns with the siblings directly. I've generally found the concerns with the partners of the siblings. I know this might sound a little bit strange, but when there have been animosity, which you obviously wouldn't be aware of, this is the time that this surfaces, when there's now an inheritance that is coming to the fore. So one of the methodologies that I thought was important is the GROW methodology. It's a coaching methodology which I've used throughout my career, but I really found this valuable as a person coming in, wanting to do the most. You've now done your comparative market analysis. You're ready to, you know, supercharge the price. You've taken the person through the process, and then you hit with a curveball of tears in front of you because you now have siblings fighting. So the will makes everything a lot simpler. It makes your job a lot easier. But I would always want to encourage you to use the GROW methodology. It's really starting with, what is the goal that we are intending to reach in this conversation right now? And that would be, we are here, the attorney has given us permission to sell this property because all the proceeds would be paid into the estate. What are the realities currently faced in this example and in your family dynamic? This is the opportunity where you have, and I always believe in writing, always schedule. You may deal with the executor directly, but try to schedule in writing all interested parties like siblings. One of the houses that I have sold, which we are waiting to wrap up, has one individual executrix. So executrix is the female version of executor. And she has two sisters, one based in Pakistan and one here. And at the moment of us now signing in order to list the property, one of the sisters actually threw a curveball and said, but I don't want to sell. And so that was unexpected. I thought I was going to be dealing with one person. So I think it's important to try to know who all interested parties are. In writing, schedule a session, let them understand the entire process that's going to happen with the property, how it is priced, what happens with an offer, you know, the usual, the entire process. When you get your offer, how will it work? And then how does it proceed from there? So, yeah, so that's GROW. When you've identified the realities, you're able to then pinpoint quite quickly. Because as I've said here, we are professionals, but then we are also counselors, psychologists, mentors, teachers, and coaches in that moment. Then you understand, okay, what are the opportunities that are going to go forward? This is where you will let them understand. Please know that people obviously want the most out of their property. I know that I don't have to say this. Agents know. Sellers will tell you I want 3.9 million and you looking at a 2.5 million rand house. You know this. And so the age-old argument is, do I leave because I know this is overpriced, or do I sit there because I've done all this work and really try to get them to a stage of counseling? The decision is yours. I would always go in personally with an amount priced correctly from the beginning. And if that seller is, fervent about not wanting to increase it or decrease it appropriately, I tend to walk away. That's just me as Darion. And I know that not everybody functions that way, because when stock is low, for example, you're wanting to push and get a mandate out of the way. But I generally would encourage anybody to go, if it's overpriced, walk away. Because when I start to get a little bit big, people are thinking about inheritance. So as agents, we've got to think this at the back of our minds. Once proceeds are paid into the estate, there's capital gains tax. There's a whole bunch of things that happen in the background. So the big figure in the amount initially is not necessarily what's going to happen at the end. And so when we do this upfront, it's so much more helpful toward the end of the process. And then there's a willingness, which you link in, where everybody understands the process that they've gone through, what's going to happen with the process, when do viewings take place, what does an offer look like, why do we take the offer, who's signing for it. The executor is fortunately the main person in charge. And then we move forward with the process. But I wanted to really include this because I have found it to be quite challenging. We have a rental book, we have normal residential sales, but what I was not ready for was estate lates and the emotional work that is involved in actually just doing the job of selling the property. So, yeah, I think if you are drawn to this, and certainly, Zelinda, I feel like this is where I'm going to be heading in, and this is where HOD is really going to start partnering, I think, in the new year to go, this is the space that I think, because of my temperament, I think I'm meant to have been here. So it found me accidentally. I've got the temperament to go, let me hug you, now let's sign the mandate. Like, I can do that because you actually, you need that. You generally need that. The shock hits you, I think, and then you're stepping one foot in front of the other. And what you do need is a trusted person next to you to go, I'm not here for the calm. I'm here to take you through the journey, and I will step in when I need to. So, yeah. So if ever there's a conversation, I think, in the future that anybody would like to have, then HOD is who you're going to choose, because generally we're going to have a chat. Get in touch with attorneys who could assist you with the estate planning component, but just so that you are ready for the end. So when it does happen, the process is very clear and every single person in the household is aware of what will happen. I think that would have been beautiful if I'd known this 10 years ago. But 10 years ago, we were always like, oh, I don't want to talk about death. But I think it's so vital to know what the end is going to look like up front, so that it's in your subconscious mind and you are not going to be unprepared for the day that call happens, as it were.
And the nice thing about working with you, Darion, is you've got those lovely offices at your home where you can have a nice coffee in a relaxed garden environment. And then you, as a lady or a gent, can go and have your nails done or your hair done, because you've got this whole lifestyle thing going on, which is very exciting. So yeah, we'll chat about that at the end.
I live for that plug. Thank you. Yes. Well, I'll touch on that. One of the best things are, when you come here, this is a safe space fundamentally. And so we've partnered with Naran's hair studio, and we've got Boss Beauty. So you come to me, we have a coffee, we sit in the garden, we chat. We understand what it is that you want. But if you need to do your nails and hair, we've got you covered as well. So this is your one-stop shop for everything you would need to have. And then we will look at attorneys coming on soon. One of the things that that's also important, I'm really excited about Master's Office, because they've got an online portal which you may or may not be aware of. Now, if you've been to the Master's Office in town, you're going up Strand Street, you're turning left where the Apache Spur is, and there's this office where you walk in and there's 1 million people in there. So if you wish to avoid that, I've included the link for where you can actually access the Justice Department online, and you register your profile. And if you've got all of the documents which I mentioned earlier, you would be able to upload all of it and fast track the process on an online platform. This is where attorneys and agents would also be logging and lodging on behalf of their clients. So again, estates under 250, you might as well do this yourself because you would be issued with a letter of authority, and estates over 250, you would follow the process on the online version on the screenshot that you'd see in front of you. Yeah, next slide, please, Kyle. I think pretty much at the end. So the Master of the High Court will take over all the powers of supervision and all deceased estates. I wanted to include this here just so that there's an app that you wish to go and read of what happens when there isn't a will. I decided to put this in here just to say and to illustrate for your own reading what would happen then. So all estates will be administered according to the Administration of Estates Act 66 of 65. But if, for example, there isn't a will, then interstate succession is what then happens and how that is then handled after that, which means it's allocated. So let's say you don't have a will, it then passes to the spouse. And if it's not the spouse, or any surviving spouse, it then passes on to children. So there's an entire breakdown, which I'd encourage you to check out on the Justice website. Those are the two specific acts which would be vital and which are used to apply to estates. So it's good for you to know as a property professional, actually what happens at the back end and how this would work. There is a decision, the Bayer decision for cases of customary marriage, which I'm not going to get into the detail of. Please read it. This is very important where there is customary marriage, more than one partner. Who then, sorry, those are my babies, excuse me. Oh my word.
You're going to make mine start barking, Darion. I've got my 3-year-old as well.
This is Georgina. This is typical of her. And then have a look at the Interstate Succession Act and the Estate Administration Act. These are quite not too difficult to read, I think quite easily to understand. And then the magistrate loses their powers to supervise and administer deceased estates. They will, however, be required to finalize matters reported to them before the 15th of October. So the magistrate, etc., does not or no longer gets involved in estate. The reason why I've included in this is most people are familiar going to the magistrate's court. That no longer happens. It needs to all go through the master's office. So I've included that just as an FYI. Please check out the website when you have a moment. Go and have a read it. And I think you'll get some important information here just to supercharge us as professionals. I think when we walk into a room, not only do we know how the market works in terms of property, but it's when we have knowledge is our appeal and why we are the partner of choice. And Carl, I think that brings us to the last slide where I am saying thank you. And I hope I have not bored anyone to tears. And again, if anything, I hope you've taken something out of this which you didn't know before, because that was really the purpose. And, sharing a personal moment like this, I think going forward is something I'd like to do with any person I come into contact with, because, when you know better, I think you do better. So, let's share the knowledge and keep the circle bigger. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Darion. Carl, I see that Darion's telephone number is missing a digit there. So Darion, if you don't mind just popping into the chat your cell phone number, I have shared your email address and your name, and we did share your qualifications and all of those fun things at the beginning. So we do enjoy on our webinars to get a little bit personal and use our own personal experiences in community schemes and in property to share with our clients. And I like to think that that is one of the things that our clients and our colleagues do enjoy about engaging with us. And I think that is what is so special about you as well. I was telling everybody before that we had known each other in primary school, hadn't seen each other for years and years, and I recognized you online. Darion was very naughty and he maybe forgot that his camera was on and he was sitting on screen having a very leisurely in the background. And although I obviously didn't know him as a smoker in primary school, he still had the same aura around him. So we had a couple of interesting questions that were posed. I did try to respond to as many of them as I could in the chat. One that I wanted to speak about, and Francois, if you're still online, I'd love to get your input on it as well. In this particular case, the managing agent has been dealing with a sectional title scheme where the husband as the owner passed away, and subsequently the wife passed away as well. And no levies have obviously been paid to the body corporate. And the son is apparently living in the unit. One would assume then rent and levy free. And what can the body corporate do? So when it comes to an estate late, I believe that any person can report an estate late. You did mention at the beginning that provided you have the right documents, one can report it. It's almost like
Yes.
stating a scheme under administration. You simply have to show that there is an interest in the matter, or a material interest in the matter. And I'm assuming that the payment of levies and the membership of the body corporate would be such a situation.
Material.
Yeah, Francois, are you maybe able to give some input on that, or you're also welcome to give any comments on the presentation as a whole, or anything that you would like to add? Not wanting to put you on the spot, but anything that you would like to use the opportunity for.
Go on,
Hi,
Francois.
hi, Darion. Let me just see if I can put on my video just to show my face quickly.
There we go.
There we go.
Lovely. Hello.
Hi. So I've actually made a few notes, just to guide everyone through. Obviously, we won't go into detail because, every estate has to be dealt with on its own merits and so forth. But to answer your question, Zerlinda, you will firstly have to look at the title deed. If there's a title deed transferred into the name of the deceased, that would in essence become an estate liability. In other words, a claim against the estate. So all outstanding levies, rates, and taxes, and so forth would be instituted against the estate, for which the executor at the end of the day would be, payable. That's why we also advise clients to get life insurance. I know a lot of people don't believe in life insurance, but when you deal with estates on a daily basis, it's a handy thing to have. So then you can just use proceeds of the life policies to pay into the estate or the heir, whatever the case may be, and the heir can then pay all outstanding levies and so forth.
Perfect.
Okay. If I may, Darion, I want to just summarize, the whole webinar and so forth. It's actually quite interesting to hear your thoughts as well. Just with regards to the reporting of the estate, I totally agree with you that we should talk about this while we are still alive. When you are no longer here, it becomes someone else's problem, and especially when you report the estate at the master's office and the death certificate, I want to just to explain that while you are still alive, do yourself a favor. If you are bored and you have extra time on your hands, go to the Department of Home Affairs and just make sure of your marital status on the death certificate.
Yes.
A lot of times, we actually received quite a few queries from the masters stating that the person was divorced, and then, people can't find the divorce certificate or the decree of divorce and settlement agreements and so forth. And on the other hand, the person's death certificate may say that he was never married, where in essence he was out of community of property, or with the accrual or whatever it may be. So we just make sure of that, because the master does query that.
Right.
And when you submit the documents to the master's office, I'm actually glad that Darion mentioned that we now have access to the online system. I'm very grateful for that as
Yes.
for that platform to register estate in. But you have to know which documents to fill out correctly, how to submit it, and so forth. And one of the other things that people often overlook is registering and coding the estate with SARS as well. That really takes the bulk of the time just to get the declarations from SARS to submit at the end of the day when you finalize the estate. And you've touched on foreign letters of executorship. The master is not fond or very friendly in issuing foreign letters of executorship. So the Act makes provision that they may refuse actually to issue the letters of executorship overseas and so forth. And likewise, when you're dealing with an estate in South Africa, for example, and the person has property in Italy or Spain or wherever in the world, you cannot touch assets overseas because it's a foreign asset. it's forbidden. So then you have to follow another complicated procedure to appoint someone elsewhere to deal with the properties there. And obviously, we do the administration of estates in terms of the South African law. Then you have to follow their laws and
Law.
so it can get quite complicated. Sorry, I'm just having a look at my notes here.
No problem.
Oh, yeah, an important aspect you also touched on was the appointment of executors. So we often see in wills, I trust that everyone here in this chat room has a will. If you do not have a will, please speak to someone who can assist you with one and give you proper guidance as to, the distribution of your assets, especially when you talk about trusts and, living annuities and all those type of financial instruments,
Yes.
just to get proper guidance thereof. So everyone has a will in this chat, I assume. And most often than not, the surviving spouse is appointed or nominated to act as the executor of the estate. A lot of times, people who don't have a lot of knowledge and does not specialize in this field, they do not know what to do, basically. They do not know where to start. And they usually appoint an attorney, which is advisable. I'm not saying that because I am one. So guide them through the process.
Sure.
It's a good idea.
Yeah, and the other problem you may have while let's say you do not appoint a surviving spouse, but rather a son or a daughter, that's totally fine. I actually, advise clients to appoint someone they know and trust to look after their affairs after they've, passed. But the problem we might have is when you give that obligation to a family member to administer the estate. And I'm saying this with all due respect. The family member does not necessarily think clearly. They think with emotions and so forth. That's why
Absolutely.
is to be appointed. And the other reason for the advice in appointing a family member is to save on extra costs. We've talked about this as well, where, for example, if a close family member has been nominated as the executor or the surviving spouse, they are usually exempt from furnishing security to the master's office. And that's often overlooked. The family member consults with you and they say, listen, I don't want anything to do with this. I'll assist where possible, but please, we want you to do the estate. Then you have to explain, listen, there's additional cost, and depending on the value of the estate, I'm sure Darion, then you have to get a bond of security, and it's just another admin cost in the deceased estate. And also, sorry, Darion?
No, I said hundreds, 100%, yes.
Yeah. So when you appoint co-executors, I'm not very fond going that route, especially like ourselves dealing with properties, and you are the experts in properties. I usually consult with people like Zerlinda and Nicole on matters where sectional title schemes are present in deceased estates. But the problem you do have and have to consider when appointing two executors, what if they disagree on something?
Yeah.
Especially with signatures, you have to get signatures from both executors. One might be, roaming around in Cape Town. One might be here in Pretoria, and it gets complicated. Original signatures are required and so forth. So I would advise just to appoint one executor.
Agreed.
Yeah, and another thing I wanted to talk about. Sorry, I don't want to take over your session.
It's free advice.
This
Free
is
legal
sharing.
advice.
Yeah,
Go for it.
making the circle bigger. I love it. I love it.
So obviously, going through the estate administration process, like I said in the beginning, each estate has to be dealt with on its own merits. And depending on the complexity of the matter, might take, 6 months to 1 year. And So when the heirs come to you, and like Zerlinda say, we are not all fortunate of a life policy that paid out to an heir. So there's not that liquid cash available to settle,
Yes.
like the DSTV accounts and postal offices and so forth. And the situation might differ. So then the family comes to you and say, listen, Franco, I need to eat. I need to pay levies. I need to live. I need petrol, whatever the case may be. And then there's an option available to the executor of the estate, not the agent, the executor of the estate. So the agent then consults with the executor and ask him, listen, we have sufficient cash available in the estate late bank account. According to our liquidation and distribution account, which you also need to draw up, and I'll talk about that a little bit more, you can see the liquidity of the cash flow basically in the estate. And you can say, listen, we have X amount available. There is a possibility of paying out an advance payment to the heir of the estate, not other family members, the heir in terms of the will or the Interstate Succession Act, provided that it's for maintenance only. And then you have to, when the executors say, listen, this is fine, there's sufficient cash, I'm not worried about any cash shortfalls and so forth, you can consider making the advance payment. But then you have to go to the masters in terms of Section 26 and apply and furnish reasons for the advance to be paid out. So I'm just saying that when you are struggling to pay your levies, that's one option to do that. But you have to consider the risk with the liquidity in the estate. Most often than not, I don't usually say no to that. I'm very open-minded when it comes to advances and so forth. But like I said, the risk involved for you as an attorney with the LPC and so forth, you have to consider that especially.
Yeah.
Okay. The last thing I wanted to talk about, or second last thing, sorry, I'm talking way too much.
No, go for
I
it.
love it.
Is the letter of executorship and the letter of authority. So basically, you've mentioned the differences between the two with the threshold of R250,000 in the estate. And I just want to clarify that the letter of executorship is issued in the normal estates, what we usually call it, not to, not to say that the small estate is not great to
Not
do,
normal.
but that letter of executorship gives authority to the appointed executor to deal with all the assets in the estate, not just a particular asset. Whereas you consult with clients, and usually on the date of consultation during that 14-day period, in a perfect world, you will submit it within 14 days, but there's a lot of emotions running around and so forth. And people don't know the value in the bank account or the value of the properties. They don't know where to begin. So they just say, listen, Franco, there was a vehicle, of X amount. There was a bank account with X amount. Everything amounts to 100,000 Rand, for example. So then you get issued the letter of authority with a little block on it, and it specifies the asset that you've listed in the inventory. Just be cautious when you do advise clients that the estate is less than R250,000, that you can only deal with those assets in the little block. We actually had a case where, it was a few years back, where they failed to mention a vehicle, and that vehicle could not be sold. And I was in the unfortunate position to advise clients that you have to go back to the master's office to apply for the letters of executorship, and that takes ages. But luckily, that leads to my last comment I just wanted to make on the online reporting system, is that you can now apply for the letters of executorship or authority via the online system. The master informed us that they want to do, they want to only submit the documents online, and they don't longer want people at the master's office submitting documents, because in the first place, original wills get lost. I don't know which one of you went to the master's office recently. It's not a very pleasant experience, but
No.
yeah, so
No.
you can register the estate as an individual, like an auditor or
Yes.
a private person, but unfortunately that's limited to 6 estates administrations. So you can only administer 6 estates via the online system, or you can register as a legal representative, and the amount of estates you can register is limitless. So luckily for the online system, where in the past you had to wait about 2 to 3 months for the letters of executorship to be issued, I usually get my letters of executorship within 2 weeks, if you comply with all the reporting documents and so forth.
Or if you have a client that provides you with all the reporting documents in time. Hey, Francois.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not going to comment on
You won't
that.
comment. Francois
I'm
is
like,
even
wow, you've got amazing clients. Organized.
he's even said to me, I suggest, Celinda, that you go and invest in a printer and scanner. I do have a printer and scanner, but for some strange reason, my MacBook and my scanner aren't talking to each other. So I have to go to the local courier shop, Postnet, to go have it all done.
Yes.
So whenever I
Yeah.
I'm on my way to Postnet, he's very excited because he's going to get all the information. And even though I'm an attorney, I've had to go to the local police station to go and have most of the documents commissioned as well. I obviously can't commission my own documents because of my interest. I can't commission documents on behalf of my late dad or my mom. And obviously Francois can't commission it because he's the attorney acting for me. So I feel very uncomfortable going into a law firm that I don't have a relationship with to go and commission documents, because commissioning documents is something that the attorneys or commissioners do for free. So they actually have to take time out of their consults or their day to come and commission documents. And as much as you want an attorney to do it with you because it's easier, the offices are nicer than going to the police station, it is quite a difficult thing to do. So I had to go and stand in a queue at the local police station, and there was a big hole with I hope not sewage water dripping down into a bucket next to me at the local police station to do the commissioning, which was quite an interesting thing. And Francois, the only thing I could think about was, I hope that they're stamping it correctly and signing it correctly. I don't have to redo this again. So
Yeah, we usually advise clients not to go to the SAPS. We've had some queries in the past from the master's office where affidavits were stamped as a true copy, for example. It's just advisable to go to a law firm or auditor or a commissioner of oaths.
Yes, because for those of you who don't know, there's 2 different types of stamps. The one is the true copy and the one is the commissioner of oaths. It's the commissioner of oaths one that you want, not the true copy. Nicole, you've patiently got your hand raised.
Yeah, I just wanted to add my little 10 cents, also going through wrapping up family members' estate. It seems to be the year for it. And just from my planning and organizing personality, there are actually programs. I don't know if you guys know of Etsy, and I mean, obviously there's Google and Temu and all of that nonsense, where you can buy an end-of-life file now. Wow. It is now a thing. And I actually bought one because I'm psycho and I want to talk about death while we're alive with my husband. It's top of our to-do list for December, because something so simple as, what am I going to do with your body? Once you've been, do you want to be cremated? Do you want to be buried? Okay, now I've got your body. What do you want to do with me? I want to be made into a diamond, but I don't think he wants to be a diamond. So, that got us talking. So just to let everybody else know that there are actually these booklets out there that you can download. The one I got is like 150 pages. So I don't think we're going to put all the information in, but it literally covers everything, from everything that you guys have mentioned that we need to know. And then more, like your funeral arrangements, what must be done with me, what do you want me to do with this, what do you want me to do with that, and I think that is such a nice tool to have, because like you say, in an emergency or something that's happened unexpectedly, you're not thinking of things like that. Now you can just go to the cupboard, pull out the file, and there you have everything all written down. and just keep it up to date. So yeah, I just wanted to share that with everybody, that somebody has thought of this as a product and they're selling it. So yeah.
I wish,
Oh, well.
yeah,
Okay.
I wish my folks had that, but I think it's definitely something that I can learn for my daughter not to have to go through this one day, because when it does happen,
Well,
even if the person that you are working with or assisting with in this process, even if they, you know, included you in everything, or even if they were sick and you knew that their time was coming to an end, it all still hits you like a ton of bricks. And in that moment, you can't even remember your own name, let alone, you know, their passwords and their this and their that and their what.
Something so simple as medications that they're on.
Yeah.
You know, in case of an emergency, oh, what medications is your mom on? I don't know. She goes to the doctor every month and it changes, you
Yes,
know.
a lot.
So it's vitally important. Yeah.
So I'd just like to call out a couple of different other people online. I know that we've got Melissa from SHP, and we've got Monique, who posted a comment earlier, and we've got our own Rizal from TVDM that specialize in levy collections when it comes to sectional title schemes as well. For those of you that don't know, Rizal has recently joined us, previously being an associate at STBB Attorneys. And although he is a consultant with TVDM Consultants, he does also practice still as well. And I will share I did share his information online. And if you do have any specific questions about levies and levy collection, you're more than welcome to reach out to him. Melissa from SHP Attorneys has been sitting in on a lot of our consultations of late, because she's recently joined the Cape Town SHP offices, Shopino Attorneys offices, and working in sectional title and levy collection specifically as well. So we are, although we can't protest or offer to be a one-stop shop as TVDM Consultants, we most certainly know and work with enough trusted colleagues to be able to put you in touch with the right person. I always joke with my friends and family and say, if they get into trouble, they must just call me and I'll put them in touch with a good attorney. We don't profess to know it all, nor do we want to be to work in everything, but we do know a lot of our colleagues in the industry. And Darion, thank you so much for being one. And Francois, thank you so much as well. I know that Francois and I have not known each other for years, but I think dealing with something that is so personal, you really can't throw anything away. We are getting to know each other a lot. Yeah. And it's nice to engage with people that do this, because on an interesting note, Francois is such an active person in his personal life and social life, with his cycling and all sorts of interesting things that he does, that it's also nice to see the personal side of someone when you're dealing with this type of thing back and forth.
Yes.
Yeah, so ladies and gents, thank you so much for joining us. To Darion specifically, thank you very much for co-hosting this webinar with us. And Francois, thank you so much for the information that you've imparted with us today, and the free legal advice that you've given, which is great. Emphasis on free, Francois. You're not going to send me an invoice for your time afterwards, hey?
I'll think about that. Thank you so much for having me. It was very pleasant.
Perfect. I'm so glad. Ladies and gents, if you'd like to stay on for a minute or two, if you have any questions, you're more than welcome to. Otherwise, we're going to call it a close for this session. We do have one more webinar for the year that's going to be held quite early in December. It's going to be a TVDM production, for lack of a better word, as we do for our last webinars. So please do join us for that. Thank you again for joining us. And if you know of anybody that was not able to attend, or you had to jump on, just a reminder that the session is recorded, and the recording will be made available on our website as well as social media. So on that note, I'll stop the recording for now, but we are more than happy to stay on for a couple of minutes if there's any other comments or questions that anybody might have.